Hoo-ah! 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 Hoo-ah!
I left it on loop again, ladies and gentlemen. Let me do it right.
Hoo-ah!
Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. I am Pasta Jardula. Fiorella is on assignment. You've probably been seeing her tweets. Some exciting stuff going on. You're going to get more information about that directly from her when she does jump on there and break the unbelievable news. She's got some amazing things going on, and it's going to be great to talk about because where she's going has been in the news lately, and we will talk about that once our guest comes aboard. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Shawn Farash, or Farash. I'll ask him how we pronounce it. I met this gentleman over at the event I did over the weekend, last weekend, that is. Not this weekend, but the weekend before last. Rebels for a Cause. It was an event put together by, I would say, people in the truther community. I don't want to necessarily put labels on people and call them tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists. Truther community, people who seek the truth. Our good friend Courtney Turner, along with her fiance, Lynn, put this whole thing together. It was an amazing event. The first speaker was Patrick Byrne. I was the last speaker, Pasta Jardula. We have so many disagreements, me and Patrick Byrne, so many things we don't agree on, different ideologies, but to come together under one huge tent. This event is about obtaining personal sovereignty through art and music and literature, because we sometimes get away from that, right? When you talk about art, you got to talk about the practice of abstract thinking. That's using a part of your brain you don't normally use. So when you participate in art, you actually grow as a species. And that was something that went on this last weekend, the weekend before last, excuse me. I got to meet these people. This gentleman, Shawn Farash, is coming on. He has a show on Rumble, Ungoverned, great show. He is a populist right candidate. He also does a great impression of Donald Trump, better than Donald Trump himself. So when he gets in, we are going to talk about migration. In fact, he's in the waiting room. So let me do the monologue. We'll just jump right into it because I got to get to Carrie Lake tonight. Carrie Lake is going to be in West Palm Beach, and I'm going to actually talk to her about the same things I'm going to talk about with our friend Shawn right here. So let me start the monologue, and we'll bring him right in. And Shawn, can you hear us? Give us a thumbs up. All right, perfect. Here we go. First time doing a monologue, so let's get it started. An area that seems to get the blood boiling of most of the people on the right is immigration on the southern border. They like to refer to it as an invasion of our land, and always like to state that the left is for open borders. And now, I'm not defending the left here because they, too, seem to be lacking in an area which is most needed in this discussion, the causality. If you ask people on the populist right or a member of the Trump crew, they will tell you, more importantly, why. They can't tell you why so many migrants are coming to the southern border. They'll more likely tell you that it's because Biden is offering them free money and cell phones. Yes, they say that with a straight face, as if they believe that this deadly 1,000-mile hike through some of the most treacherous obstacles is worth $600, a bus ticket, and a Nokia phone. True that once given a few bucks and a bus pass, they usually are never seen again as they disappear into our society, and oftentimes send their slave wages back home, not putting it into our economy. But when you look deep into the gist of things, you'll realize that they are often here because we are there. Yes, America and its Monroe Doctrine has over 80 bases spread throughout Latin America, and I assure you they aren't housing the Boy Scouts there. No, these bases and personnel are there to assure that America's corporations hold on to those regions' natural resources, while the U.S. government supports and funds the craziest radicals, turning these countries into hellholes and forcing these people to leave. And we have all the receipts to prove it. Like Guatemala in the 1950s, when that government nationalized their fruit, building themselves hospital, roads, the whole 9 yards, schools, only for our government, Arthur Dulles of the CIA, who convinced our government to go in there at the behest of the UFC, which is the United Fruit Company, and overturn that government, putting those natural resources back into the hands of corporations. We have the Nicaraguas in the 1980s, which I will be going to Nicaragua in July to celebrate with the Sandinistas, who fought a war against the Contras, who were heavily armed by, guess who? The CIA, so the corporations can control Nicaragua and not the people. And then finally, we have Honduras in the 2000s, where they removed Manuel Zelaya in the middle of the night in his underwear because he had joined forces with Alba And the United States government, along with the CIA, at the behest of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, removed him from office. In fact, the U.S., along with their buddies in the CIA, have attempted over 40 or 50 coups in the last 50 years in Latin America. And you wonder why they are coming. Maybe they're coming to look for their stuff. Maybe the party of individual responsibility needs to take some responsibility for their country's foreign policy instead of blaming the immigrants of the invaded land. Joining me today is our good friend Shawn Farash, who is also just not only an awesome person, a New York Jet fan, but he does a better impression of Trump than Donald Trump himself. Shawn Farash, or Farash, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's good to be here. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. And I'm excited for our conversation. Cool that you're going to be talking to Carrie Lake tonight. She's awesome. And I'm excited to see how that goes as well.
Yep. Well, I'm going to the event. I don't know if she'll take questions, but she's usually open to that. And I'm going to ask her that same question. I'm going to ask you, Shawn, and I'll let you jump right into it. What is the causality of migration to the southern border? Please, go ahead.
Migration through the border, obviously, well, there's a couple of interesting things that happens at the southern border. So you come here, you come across the border, and now you're given all sorts of resources and opportunities. So if I was somebody in a country that didn't have some luxury items, if I didn't have money, if I didn't have an opportunity for a job, and I didn't have just the opportunity that many would be given just by residing in the United States, there would be a lot of incentive for me to come across the border and plant myself here in the United States, whether it's legal or not or illegal, just because those opportunities to gain different things, different aspects, different upgrades to my quality of life would exist. And I really can't fault a lot of those folks because, look what happens. You go to New York, right? You cross the southern border, you hop on a bus, Abbott sends you out of Texas, you wind up landing and, your bus stops in Manhattan. Now you're being put up in ritzy hotels, or you basically have been dropped in a land where the leaders of that land have promised to be a sanctuary. And as an American, I have an issue with that because, I know what the Statue of Liberty says, give us your tired, your needy, and your poor. But I mean, the Statue of Liberty doesn't set policy for us either. And we could take tired and needy and poor people all the time. But when we have tired and needy and poor Americans, tired and needy and poor and hungry veterans, I mean, I think it kind of falls on us to take care of them first, before we start taking on other people. But there's definitely an incentive for folks to migrate into the country across the southern border. And now we're seeing the northern border too.
Okay, so you didn't answer my question, though, and that's the most important thing. What is the causality itself? Are you really going to stick to this claim? And this is something that I can't understand. The party of individual responsibility, which is the conservative party, right? That's the whole thing about being a conservative, right? Whether it be populist, right, or right, you have to take some individual responsibility for yourself. You can't expect the state to just give you handouts all the time, because we understand, I think when it comes to the conservative populist right, they understand the quagmire that is that if you continue to take things from the state, you're dependent on the state can shut you out, cut you down whenever they want. We want to have our individual sovereignty, and that's what we kind of celebrated at the Rebels for a Cause. But do you really believe that for a couple $1,000, well, not even a couple $1,000, let's say a couple $100, a bus ticket and a phone is the actual cause of migration, thousands of miles to get here? And do we want to ignore those 82 bases and those 50 coups I talked about in my monologue there? Shawn, we have 82 bases. The CIA has overthrown almost every single government in Central America except for one government. You know what government that is? Costa Rica. Guess where the people aren't coming from? Costa Rica. Surely you have to think that our foreign policy, Shawn, has something to do with the migration itself. And if we fix that first, wouldn't everything else fall into play?
Well, I think we should leave those countries alone too. But I do think the number one cause is that if you do come here, if you do cross the border, we're not going to kick you out. So it won't be done in vain. I don't want to see it happen, but I think that's why it is happening. I mean, it happened less under the Trump administration when stricter border and immigration policies were not just in place, but were enforced. when physical barriers were being constructed on the southern border. It becomes easier to come here. So if it's easier to do it, and it looks like you're going to have a better life after you do it, people are going to do it. I mean, there's nobody telling them no. That's the biggest problem. There's nobody telling them no, and so they see that as a wide open invitation to come in, and they're coming in.
Kamala Harris said, "Don't come here." And in fact, Barack Obama deported more people in his first 4 years than Donald Trump did in his first 4 years. But I think that the issue I have is that we're so fixated on what happens when they get here rather than concentrating on what's going on. If you guys are so, and I'm going to say you guys, I'm going to say populist right people, because is it fair to classify you as the populist right? Because the thing about you is that I've heard you criticize Donald Trump when you think he messes up. You just don't give him a free pass all the time. But I think a lot of the politics after watching your show kind of stem from the conservative populist right. Is that a fair assessment to say?
Yeah, I would say populist. I would say federalist. I would like the states in our country to have more power than the federal government. And constitutionally, they do. But everyone has kind of focused all of their energy on, it's kind of like sports. You talked about, I'm a Jets fan, right? It's almost like every time a team loses, it's like, do you fire the coach, even though kind of, your offensive line might be the problem sometimes, right? In many people's minds, the federal government is always to blame, and it's not always the problem. State legislatures have the ability to take back some of the power that the federal government has constitutionally, enumerated powers, etc. So federalist. Populist, yeah, I would say populist is a good way to describe it. Conservative populist, yeah. I wouldn't say that's an unfair characterization of where I fall.
Okay, so let's play this video from Donald Trump. Cheese Slice, let's bring this up real quick because this is the thing that I'm pointing to. I think it's just we so easily, I don't think we should mess around in those countries. We have 82 bases in Latin America. Listen to Donald Trump's rhetoric over here, because this is what a lot of people like myself, because I don't go after Donald Trump for Stormy Daniels. I don't go after him about this bullshit indictment, which I love to talk to you about right now. And I have a clip from Robert Barnes we can play, kind of showing you how this is just nothing more than a witch hunt when it comes to this latest indictment. But stuff like this over here, I don't think that Donald Trump, and this is when people go, what is the one area in which Donald Trump is worse than Biden at? It might be when it comes to Latin America. He hired the same people that caused all the problems. Elliot Abrams, right, who was in the thick of things during the Iran-Contra scandal. He's hired back. John Bolton, he's hired back. Listen to Donald Trump over here, and you tell me that this is okay and that this isn't about imperialism, this isn't about warmongering. This isn't about the reason we have so much migration to our southern border. Take a listen, Shawn.
How about we're buying oil from Venezuela? When I left, Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil. It would have been right next door. But now we're buying oil from Venezuela, so we're making a dictator very rich. Can you believe this? Nobody can believe it. You know where the oil, their oil is garbage. It's horrible. The worst you can get, tar. It's like tar. And to refine it, you need special plants. And these people, how about we're buying?
Okay. Shawn, I can't begin to tell you that's the same rhetoric that the left uses for the justification. Putin's a dictator. Putin's awful. I can't wait to go to Venezuela next year and observe their elections and even prove to people that their elections are better than the United States elections, the same way I proved that people in Brazil, those elections are fair, that are better than our elections, the same way I proved that Nicaragua, in which we're still messing around with, and Donald Trump endorsed all these actions when it comes to sanctions on our southern brothers and sisters down there in Latin America. How can we not say that this is the problem itself, that this is why there's so much migration? Why doesn't the populist right want to take any accountability for our foreign policy? Go ahead, bud.
I think using the language like taking it all over and taking all the oil is silly. The answer to all of our and that's that's something that Trump does. He just says things, and whether or not he meant it, I don't know. I mean, but he still said it, right? So did he mean going into Venezuela, taking it over, and taking all the oil? I think he did, because even in the Afghanistan and Iraq, talking about that, he was talking about taking the oil.
Syria.
So. Yeah. So it's kind of like, do we want to sit there in other countries and take their oil, or can we just, as we always say, just drill, baby, drill? I mean, I would not. It's hard because, like, isolationist is one of those terms where people are like, oh, well, that's not practical. But like I would try to be as close to that as possible, because meddling and spreading ourselves thin in all these other countries just seems very counterproductive. And it's also a waste of resources. I mean, if Venezuelan oil is so dirty and so disgusting, and I understand he's talking about the processes by which they refine it, but is us really establishing some sort of control over their oil the answer? I don't think it is. I think us establishing control over our oil production domestically within our borders is the answer.
Yeah, I believe that stuff. Do you believe if we were to close these bases and call back the CIA, because there is a presidential candidate out there, a presidential candidate who's better than on the vaccine and coronavirus than Donald Trump, a president who's also mentioned the fact that we shouldn't be meddling in Latin America, a president who a possible president whose uncle held office, who's in Latin America, has more roads, buildings named after him than any president to hold office. That's RFK. He's mentioning that. Shouldn't a lot of people on the populist right, even though he's running as a Democrat, take a second look at RFK when he is better on these two policies right here when it comes to Latin America, when it comes to the jab? Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, he has a lot of good things to say. I could say that, and he's refreshing. As somebody who is not a Democrat, I am not a Democrat, but he's refreshing to hear. It is refreshing to hear somebody on the Democrat side of things speak like he does about a couple of issues, being the vaccine. Number one, that the vaccine is trash. I would not want people to take it if they, I mean, look, you do what you want, your own medical history, your own doctor, your own conversations. That's fine. I was never a believer in it. I always thought Donald Trump was getting himself in trouble with getting too close to the vaccine, pushing it faster. I didn't understand how that was a good thing. Skipping the steps. It's like, well, we're skipping the steps so we can help people. It's like, well, there's therapeutics and treatments. And how about telling people to go to the gym and be healthy? That's the number one way not to get a severe illness from the coronavirus, from the COVID virus. There's no reason to rush a vaccine to market. If anything, that should make us more apprehensive to taking it. Well, we did it at warp speed. It's like, well, how much testing was done? Well, the pharma company says it's fine. Well, part of me, if I don't trust them, right? Because they're obviously not going to say it's not fine. It's the reason why a lot of our automobiles have recalls, right? Well, Chevy said it was safe when I bought it, but now I got to take it back to the dealership because the airbag might pop out of the steering wheel whenever it feels like it, right? It's like, that's not necessarily a good thing. We need more steps and more safety. And I'm not saying red tape in every area is a good thing. And all of these regulations in every area is a good thing. When it comes to something that you're putting in your body to prevent you from getting sick, I would say it's definitely a good thing to do more testing than less. And so when I heard about warp speed and they skipped this step and we got this out of the way, I said, this thing's getting rushed and is probably not, I'm not exactly excited about the vaccine. Now, obviously, we have to say the vaccine is safe and effective because of YouTube.
Yeah.
So it's definitely.
Yeah, I was going to say when you were
effective.
saying that. The CDC says the vaccine is safe and effective, and today I looked to see if I can remonetize, right? Because I've been
it's totally safe.
What's that?
Totally safe.
Totally safe. Safe and effective. I went to look to see if I can remonetize my channel today because I've been demonetized for 3 years. And a couple weeks ago, YouTube put out a statement saying that they're no longer going to demonetize people or take down videos on elections, and that was an area which we think. Because I think you guys on the right know more than anybody about demonetization. They were hacking you guys up left and right. But I think it's a good thing to point out that as a traditional old school liberal or a common sense leftist, like I like to refer to myself, because I can have these conversations with people like yourself. We can break bread together and have a good time. We also get demonetized too. That if you say anything against the narrative, they'll take you down and they'll sack you. Well, they haven't reviewed my last claim, and it's over 6 months ago. Yeah. So I don't think I'm going to get my monetization back. And that really hurts because Rumble, even though my boy Cheese Slice over there, who's monitoring the show and engineering over here, says, you should take a look at Rumble. I feel that Rumble is more built for a conservative audience. So it's really hard for me to build it up. But, I'm going to do what I can do to try to survive. The next question I have for you, Shawn, though, is because you're a guy who calls it like it is. I've watched your videos and I've seen you before, hold Trump's feet to the fire. Like, this was wrong. And I can imagine that people will yell at you on, conservative, like, how can you say that, Shawn? What the hell is wrong with you and stuff like that? Other than RFK coming into play right now, because I think RFK is a better choice for people who are, who like Donald Trump, because you can argue that Donald Trump was the best choice there. I mean, if you're asking me if I had to vote for Donald Trump or Joe Biden, I'm going to tell you right now, I'd vote for, if a gun to my head, I have to vote for Trump or Biden, I'm voting for Trump without hesitation over Biden. Why do you think it's still worthy to vote for Donald Trump? Even though when you talk about companies like BlackRock and Vanguard and those companies controlling everything, Donald Trump's name is on the CARES Act. That was the biggest kickdown to all these corporations than any bill out there ever before. So why would you still today stand up and say, hey, man, we still should get behind Donald Trump? Go ahead, buddy.
Well, I think for the first 2 years of his term, he was submarined by, and look, I'm not trying to say that the guy shouldn't have negotiated harder. He wrote a book about negotiating, right? But he dealt with the Speaker of the House and Paul Ryan. He dealt with bad actors in the Senate like John McCain, to submarine some of the healthcare plans, the submarine wall funding, and these people that are, they call them rhinos, Republican in name only. And they didn't help him. And then they could have helped them, and they didn't want to help him, and they put themselves in front of their country. I do think Donald Trump is the best choice right now in the presidential election, all candidates considered. For my viewpoints, obviously, I think there are questions I have with RFK regarding his stances on the Second Amendment. I think that there's an issue. I have an issue with a guy like RFK when he gets a little too, I don't want to say wound up, but he says some stuff and he believes a few things about the climate situation that I'm not too excited about. I mean, I've been a hobbyist for a while when it comes to weather, and I get very annoyed when I watch hurricanes explode in the Gulf of Mexico like they've been doing for years. Ian was one of the best examples. I remember on my show in September, or actually in August of 2022. I said, hey, guys, this is not a weather show, but I want to let everyone know who's watching in the Gulf states to be careful. There's going to be a very severe hurricane that's going to be making an impact somewhere on the Gulf of Mexico and wound up being, southwestern Florida down on that coast. And, the immediate thing was climate change and it's causing more intense storms. It's not causing more intense storms. Okay, it isn't. These storms have been going on for a long time. Hurricane Andrew was one of the worst storms that the panhandle of Florida had ever seen. I mean, you can go back to the Long Island. The hurricane in it was in the early 1900s that literally carved out Moriches Inlet before we even started thinking about climate and things like that. The excuse that, oh my gosh, every time it snows too much, it's climate change. And then every time it rains too much, it's climate change. And then every time it blows too hard, it's climate change. Every time it gets hot or too cold, it's climate change. It's like, okay, but how come I've had this discussion with people on the right who have theories about things that are going on, right? And I go, all right, no problem. You're telling me it's raining. How come when I look outside my window, I don't see rain? Well, you haven't done your research. I go, well, but it's very simple. You told me to look outside and I would see it raining, correct? This is what's going to happen. How come that's not what's going on right now? And it says, well, you're not looking deep enough. Well, how deep do I have to look outside to see if it's freaking raining or not? Right? So my whole Al Gore, Inconvenient Truth. I was literally brainwashed by that movie in high school, had to answer tests in the affirmative that Miami was going to be underwater today, and it isn't. So I'm kind of just that's what I have. I'm resistant. I enjoy what RFK brings to the table on the Democrat side. What a breath of fresh air. I don't agree with him on some things. I do agree with him on other things. I think him calling out the intelligence state, especially given the history that his family has had with the intelligence apparatus in this country, is very brave. And more people need to do it. More people need to do what Tucker Carlson does. More people need to do what RFK does with regards to the CIA. I'm behind Donald Trump because I know that this guy, he's somebody who doesn't have to be doing what he's doing right now. Doesn't have to. He didn't have to run in 2016. Didn't have to. Not a politician. Not told to do it. Not pushed into it. It's because the guy's been fascinated with Winston Churchill and Abraham Lincoln his entire life. Read his books from before he became a political figure. He cited those two men all the time. Those are pretty cool leaders. I think they're pretty effective leaders in the history of world history, United States history, etc. Been fascinated by them their whole life. I've always wanted a president that speaks their mind unequivocally, unapologetically, and he does that. And sometimes it's to his own detriment. It is. I mean, there are times where he says things and I go, maybe not the right thing to say, but he says it anyway. And he just runs with it. And it's like, okay, well, we'll just have to deal with that. There are problems though that I've had with Donald Trump. And yes, I've been yelled at by people on the right going, you're a traitor. I said, I'm not a traitor because I'm not beholden to one man. I'm beholden to a philosophy, and I'm also beholden to fairness. And I believe in all fairness. When you look at some of Donald Trump's hiring decisions, like you had brought about Bolton, okay? But not just John Bolton. Jeff Sessions was a horrible attorney general. Bill Barr was a very lazy attorney general. Dr. Oz was a phenomenally bad endorsement in the 2022 midterms. Kevin McCarthy was only endorsed because he could fundraise for the Republican Party, not to get results. The list goes on with some of those. Rex Tillerson, Reince Priebus, some of these people that he put in his cabinet were not good people. But if there's one thing that I have learned and seen about Donald Trump over the course of his business venture, is that when he makes a mistake, he can learn from those mistakes and get better from those mistakes. And he seems to be the only candidate in the race on the Republican side that I can agree with on most of the values and his philosophies and policy decisions that he would make, but B, the only Republican candidate that I can see that is not controlled entirely or the majority by these swampy RNC-like entities. He just doesn't care. He doesn't, and that's why they're coming after him. That's why they're throwing nonsense indictments about porn stars after him. That's why they're throwing classified documents. Is this about classified documents? No. Read the indictment. It's about documents with classified markings. That doesn't mean anything. Yeah. And that's one of the biggest, issues I have with the indictment is the verbal jujitsu they chose.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, we'll get to that part too as well. He has the executive branch. He determines what's classified and what's not classified. Congress doesn't do that. The deep state doesn't do that. He does. And I got to be honest with you, his worst endorsement, I think, was Kemp over Vernon Jones, right?
Yeah.
In Georgia. Like, come on, dude. You had this guy over here. Mike Lindell was there campaigning with this guy. And I also want to say something. The Bolton hiring, I don't put them on him so much because the Democrats, they sabotaged the whole General Flynn situation. General Flynn, I don't like everything about General Flynn. I surely don't like his attitudes towards China. But General Flynn was one who called out Barack Obama for his actions on Syria, while Homeboy was doing a victory lap. Oh, we got Osama bin Laden. He was on Al Jazeera going, yeah, do you know what he did in Syria? Not so good and not good at all. But let's talk about climate change really quick, because I want to talk about this, because there's something that RFK has done that I wish Donald Trump would do. Now, when it comes to climate change, I'm with you, man. I can't stand the fact that they want to start going and acting like solar is the solution, when to get all this material for solar panels, you're going to have to invade so many more countries to get all this cobalt, nickel, everything you need to get these solar panels into play. And when these things, they sit on a landfill, right? They don't disintegrate. They sit there forever, and they don't heat up enough to actually, replace oil and fossil fuels and all those things. And the problem with this is no real discussion, right? We get into either feast and famine. We get these leftists, like you said, an inconvenient truth. We should be living underwater right now in Miami, but we're not. Mm-hmm. Or we get the right drill, baby, drill. I would ban fracking personally, because I think fracking is awful for our water. We can't fuck with our water. I'm sorry for cursing. I know you don't curse on your show. We can't fudge with our water, right? If we do mess with our water and we have earthquakes on the ground, then we bad. What I'm trying to say, there's no common sense conversations when it comes to climate change anymore because of the tribal behavior we have going on. But the one thing I do like about RFK, when it does come to climate change, he's listening to you when you say these things, because he's come out and said, hey, we're no longer going to take a top-down approach from climate change anymore, which is pretty much going exactly against what the World Economic Forum is trying to do when they're trying to commodify every single part of Mother Nature over here. He was able to do that. Why haven't we gotten the same thing from Donald Trump when it comes to Operation Warp Speed? Why hasn't he just come out and say, you know what? I even though I never really mandated it, I still went along with it, and I shouldn't have done that. And there's a lot of data now on this vaccine that shows it's the worst vaccine of all vaccines, even though the CDC says it's safe and effective. Sorry, YouTube. Why hasn't he come out and done a 180 on this thing? Why is he waiting it? Why is he parading around the Johnson family rather than going, you know what? My bad. I listened to the wrong people. I should have fired Fauci. He's awful. I won't make that same mistake twice. Why is he waiting on this?
I think he's trying not to shoot himself in the foot and give the Democrats something to hit him over, because the biggest mistake I think the Democrats made with the vaccine was using that as a means of controlling people. Masks weren't enough. If they had, I'll tell you, Donald Trump wouldn't even be a conversation on the Republican side of the ticket if the Democrats had just pinned the ineffectiveness on the vaccine on him and his rushing it through the market. Would have been over. Would have been over, because Republicans would agree with that. Okay, it would have been another Caitlyn Jenner situation. Why are we seeing the rise of the transgender craziness all across the country right now? I firmly believe it was not 100% on the shoulders of Bruce Jenner, but he started parading himself around conservative media as a woman, accepting Woman of the Year awards. So if I was on the left going, hey, you see this? They like that. Let's push that now. I mean, where can we push back? It was Vanity Fair, Time, Woman of the Year with the ESPYs, and he's a conservative, so he says. His politics, I would say, are, I think that they could have destroyed Donald Trump without even firing a single shot legally, not physically, but they could have destroyed him without firing a single legal shot had they just realized Kamala said, I ain't taking that vaccine. He's telling me to take it. I ain't taking it. And they should have stuck to it. But they were too addicted, the Democrat establishment, to power and to control. All they needed to do is take a look at this vaccine. Everyone knew it wasn't going to work, and go, see what Trump did? He's screwing with your bodies. He's pushing it. He rushed it through the market. You can't trust this guy. Republicans would have agreed. We wouldn't even be having a conversation about an indictment. He'd be out of the picture. But they let their they let their thirst for power come before. This is one of the first times I've ever seen it happen. Their political acumen, they let it come before their political instincts, and instead went to lock down the people and control people with vaccines, purge the military, purge the teaching force, purge the first responders, and all of that. And maybe it'll be worth it for them, maybe it wouldn't. But I think if Trump had come out and said, I was wrong about the vaccine, the Democrats jump all over it. I think his only out, because he did mess up, his only out was to say that, hey, I never forced anyone to get it. And that's what I believe. But, I believed it was safe and effective at the time. And that's his only out. And a lot of Republicans feel the same way. DeSantis obviously was pushing the vaccine in Florida, trying to vaccinate the elderly population. Other Republican governors were pushing it. Republican elected representatives were posting about when they got vaccinated. And I was never going to be one of those people. And it depends. How hard were you pushing it? Trump was pushing it hard for a period of time. He has since backed off. But no, he hasn't done the 180, and I don't think he can afford to do the 180, because the media will go, it was the Trump shot, and we trusted him because the doctors and et cetera, but they were the doctors that he put in place, and it was his policies. I don't think he can. I think he's kind of wedged into a corner where the only thing he could say right now is, well, I didn't force you to get it.
Do you think there's opportunity right now for him to come back and say I was wrong now? I mean, don't you think that would really put him in a good position where he can say, hey, I messed up? That's something I don't see from Donald Trump, the humility, right? Like, come forth now and say, hey, man, I screwed up on this thing. I should have done this. I listened to the wrong people. I had the wrong people around me. At that moment in time, I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was saving lives. I thought I was protecting people, but I was wrong. Wouldn't that go a long way for Donald Trump right now if he were to do that?
I think you're right. If he did that right now and said it that way, it actually might be a good thing for him. But getting him to say those 3 words, I was wrong, is a very difficult thing to do. And for any politician, generally those are 3 words that they are told you can't say because it'll get twisted like nobody would believe. But if he did, it would go a long way with his base. I believe it, because there are a lot of people who don't want to vote for Trump right now and are going to support another candidate in the Republican primary. Now, albeit it's not enough, that are saying one of the reasons why they don't want to give their support to Donald Trump is because of his aggressive push for the vaccine. And I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that. He should come out and say, listen, I listened to the same people everyone was telling me to listen to. I listened to Fauci. I listened to Birx. I was told they were the experts. I'd never been here before. This was something we'd never seen before. It was It was totally unique, and I thought I was doing the right thing. But as it turns out, as we know now, I should have we shouldn't have rushed it to market. We should have put it through more rigorous testings. We would have avoided a much bigger problem than what we may have inadvertently and unintentionally caused. If he can come out with a statement like that, or something that could go a long way with the right, I think the left will use it against him, but I think it would go a long way with the supporters on the right, a really long way, where even, I mean, quite possibly you could see a lot of the people who have defected to the Ron DeSantis camp switch over before the primary debates even start if he did something like that. I just don't think he has to. And I think he unless he feels like he absolutely has to admit that he was wrong on something, he just won't, and that's who he is.
I think that's where he's going to lose a lot of votes to support to RFK in that area too as well. And I'd love to see that happen. But you're right. It's really hard as a politician to say that because they'll crucify you if you do say that. Let me ask you about the other reason. The main reason why I've never been a Trump supporter, and like I said, if I had to vote over Donald Trump or Joe Biden, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I mean, I think Donald Trump, I take my chances with him, 1,000 times before I took it with Joe Biden. But Julian Assange, that's a hard one for me. You got any insight, or you think why Donald Trump has not pardoned Julian Assange? Because if you are for freedom of speech, if you are for freedom of press, that is the number one guy right there sitting in front of you that's being held in a prison in Belmarsh, and they're waiting to ship him over here in the United States so they could prosecute him for so long. And not only that, they upped the charges when Donald Trump was in office. You know what I'm saying? He didn't pardon him, and he had a chance to do so. And I think this is one of Trump's greatest mistakes, Julian Assange. What are your thoughts on how Donald Trump has handled the situation with Julian Assange?
Julian Assange should be pardoned. Plain and simple. Freedom of the press. He exposed corruption. He should be pardoned. People want to say sources of methods. He endangered people. He did this. He did that. He gave us so much insight into what's going on and what was going on, not just here, but in other countries as well. Julian Assange should be pardoned. I don't know why he's not doing it. I don't know what Donald Trump knows that we don't know. So, there are obviously levels of information that he is privy to that we are not privy to. But from 30,000 feet, or even at face value, just seeing, watching that whole thing unfold, he should be pardoned. Julian Assange should be pardoned. And that would help. That would go a long way. Donald Trump talked about it in a couple of his speeches yesterday. His bringing back free speech in America. There's no better way to do that than to pardon a guy like Assange and give him safe harbor here, and let him be a journalist, because the truth is the truth, right? There's not my truth or your truth. There's the truth. And he was giving us the truth. That's what a journalist is supposed to do. No matter how ugly it is, no matter who it implicates, you're supposed to get the story out there. And plenty global powers didn't like that. And now Assange has essentially been taken out of the picture.
Ladies and gentlemen, do us a favor, hit the like button, hit the share button. We are being seriously demonetized in shadow ban today. This is one of the smallest crowds I've had on YouTube in quite some time. Maybe it was my tweet this morning and showing a picture of the fact that they haven't looked at my account in 6 months to answer my question about reinstating my monetization that we've been demonetized for 3 years now. It's not just people on the right. It's old school liberals and common sense leftists like myself that are also getting spanked. I really do appreciate you coming on, Shawn, and answering all these questions. You're amazing. The cartels. This is another area. And we're going to wrap this up very shortly. Got about 14 minutes left. You got the 14 minutes, or do you have to jump right away? How much time you got left?
I would probably have to run in probably by the 14 minutes because I have another recording to do. But yeah, we'll
make it quick. We'll make it sweet. We have to get over to the indictment, which is a crock of shit. And that's why people will be gathering in Miami tomorrow. I'll be going down there. Like I said, hopefully I can run into some of your friends. I got my friends going. I'm going to go see Carrie Lake tonight. Hopefully I can get a couple questions with her. The cartels. This is another area where I think Donald Trump is really falling into a bad place. And I think he's just, kind of answering the calls of the red meat of the conservative base when he talks about the cartels and the fentanyl situation. First of all, the fentanyl situation, we have to look at who created the customers, and that is Big Pharma. They poisoned our children with Adderall and all these other drugs, these opioids. The Sackler family got away with murder pretty much. They're not going to have to pay all that money they were sentenced to pay, and you can't sue them again. So they created all the customers here. But, I think it's a great story that could be sold by the military-industrial complex. Oh, they're paying us back for the opium wars. China's getting it back by giving the cartels fentanyl, and they're smuggling it across our borders. Well, what we know from Iran-Contra, another situation I talked about earlier, is that the CIA runs the cartels. So if we really wanted to curtail the cartels and their behavior, Shawn, shouldn't we look to Langley in Virginia instead of going down to the south and going into Mexico? Because I think this is more about AMLO, a kind of populist president over there, who's nationalizing the lithium. And that's pissing off a lot of corporations in America. Is Donald Trump making a mistake by playing into this whole, we're going to go after the cartels and we're going to go into another country whenever we want to? Go ahead, bud.
We shouldn't be going into other countries whenever we want to. We should be fighting. If we're fighting cartels, we need to make sure we're doing it here. I am a big, I say it all the time, every morning, or not every morning, but most mornings, that the next Republican president, whoever it is, really the next president of the United States, whoever it is, if it's Biden, it won't be. He won't do this. But the next president, 2024, whoever it is, needs to dismantle the intelligence apparatus in this country, 100%, because not only are they spying on us and weaponizing the instruments that we were told are supposed to keep us safe. They're not keeping us safe. They're hurting us more than anything. But they're meddling in other nations, and they're doing things that we shouldn't be doing. And they've been doing that for a very long time. And it's not necessary. We don't need to be worried about what's going on in another country, specifically when it comes down to, and you could be right about these, the CIA running the cartels. They're sending them up here with fentanyl. There's been enough fentanyl that's come over the border in the last month or two that can kill every American twice. I mean, it's disgusting. And it's you see what this stuff looks like? They kind of look like Skittles and Fruity Pebbles and candy, right? And so a kid could eat this stuff and not know what they're getting themselves into. It's making its way into drugs that people used to consider safe. I mean, you're out there, I don't do this, but if anybody's, out on the street, smoking pot and they buy it from some guy they don't know, you could die. And that was something that you never thought might happen to you, smoking what everyone would consider to be a pretty, in terms of overdose risk, a very harmless drug, right? I mean, it's not harmless anymore. None of this stuff is harmless anymore. And then we can't trust what the government's doing, because you don't know what they're putting in all of these different FDA certified, blah, blah, blah. That's like a big red flag to me too. Oh, the government put their stamp approval on it. They did that with the JAB too. So it's kind of like, what do we do? Well, the answer is do it all at home. But Trump talking about going after the cartels, if we are physically boots on the ground going after these cartels, no bueno. If we're putting pressure on other countries through sanctions and other policy mechanisms for them to crack down on the cartels and incentivizing them to crack down on the cartels for better deals, okay. But if we're down there, boots on the ground going after cartels, no, we don't belong in other countries meddling. We're not the world's police. We need to focus on our problems domestically first.
Shawn, I appreciate your honesty there, and I think you're going to piss off a lot of your followers too as well. What do you mean we can't go after the cartels where they're at? But I personally believe that we have to go at the actual drug pushers, and that's the big pharma companies. The way they get away with these things, the Sackler family. I mean, I don't like Crispy Christie. Is that what they're calling him? Krispy Kreme Chris Christie?
Yeah, Crispy Christie
at all.
Yeah.
But the one thing that he brought to the spotlight was his friend that had died from opioids, and the situation that he had to deal with, one of his best friends that, got all the grades, looked the best, but he fell addicted to opioids. And those opioids were given to him by who? His doctor. Let's take a look at this video really quickly because we got to get you out of here. And then I want to introduce my mom to you because my mom wants to meet you. I played her a video of yours and she's like, oh my God, I want to meet this guy. And maybe you can do a little Trump with her. Her name is Joan. But wait one second. But take a look at this video really quick because this is Robert Barnes. I got a lot of respect for Robert Barnes. Robert Barnes shared my video, my election files when I was talking about what was going down in Brazil, because I think a lot of people, especially in the populist right, they kind of lived, I want to say vicariously through what happened in Brazil to what happened to them here at home. But it was a totally different situation. And Lula is a totally different president than Biden. And I explain to people all the time, over the weekend, I got to talk to Matt Baker about it. I got to talk about it with Harrison Smith and tell them why that election was fair. And the people we were listening to, a guy by the name of Matthew Turman, who wasn't even there for the election, he didn't go and follow it, who gave all this information, turned out to be the little snitch that got James O'Keefe thrown off the board. And he was once propped up by, InfoWars, by Steve Bannon's outlet, even Tucker. And I couldn't get on any of these channels to go, hey, guys, this guy's gleaning off my work. I was in Brazil. I can explain to you what happened. And I think it was important we understand why Lula won. Whether we like him or not, we still have to understand why he won, and I think he won fairly. But let's play this video right now. Mr. Barnes, this is in a nutshell at the end of the day. And it's not because, and I think a lot of people out there go, they've been witch hunting about Trump, about this and that and this and that, going after him for Stormy Daniels, going after him for this. This is just another part of the witch hunt. But this is the important thing to remember about this case when it comes to this indictment. The whole thing is built upon a false premise. Let's play this video right here by Mr. Barnes. Go ahead, Cheese Slice. We need volume. We need volume. We need volume, Cheese Slice.
The state indictment on bogus George. Robert, I can
go to
I can
442
feel everyone,
the video. 442. That works.
One core problem with all of these claims. This is the elected president of the United States. He determines if a document's classified or not. He determines a document is secret or not. He determines whether it's a government document or not. Congress can't do that. Justice Department can't do that. The intelligence community can't do that. This is an indictment saying Donald Trump used his own documents, kept his own documents, liked his own documents, and didn't want to give his own documents back. That's his constitutional right. So the problem with this case is the entire case is bogus. Instead, this is an attempt of the deep state to overturn our constitutional democracy, to say that they can tell the world when their secrets get to be disclosed. That's what this case is premised on. Donald Trump rebutting the lies of General Milley, who lied to Bob Woodward, who claimed that he had stopped Trump from waging war in Iran.
That's good, Jamie.
When it was actually Trump that stopped Milley from waging war in Iran.
So, your final thoughts on that, Sean? And this is my mom, Joan. Ma, this is Sean. She's eating pizza, but I told you to come in. She's a big Trumper, and I told her you can do a little Trump impression for her and stuff like that. But your final thoughts on what we saw there on this whole indictment, because a lot of people are saying, did you read the indictment? You didn't read the indictment. And it was like, this is the same thing when it came to Hillary Clinton. I'm like, no, Hillary Clinton wasn't the president. Donald Trump was. He has the right to classify documents if he wants to.
Yeah, Presidential Records Act, Bill Clinton sock drawer.
Yes.
There's a ruling by Judge Amy Berman Jackson, which explicitly states in there that the president has the discretion when he's leaving to classify things as personal records or presidential records. And Presidential Records Act is a civil matter, not a criminal matter. Now they want to make this about Espionage Act. They want to make this about national defense. And that's why they're pursuing criminal indictments. Now, I did read the indictment. I've heard a lot of, including classical liberals like Alan Dershowitz, who's not a Republican, say the same thing. These are situations in these indictments that, that doesn't look like this really going to hold up in court. And that really can't be prosecuted. Jack Smith has been a left-wing lawyer and U.S. attorney, special prosecutor. He's a special prosecutor in this case. He's been tied to folks who have been very anti-Trump in the past, including Dana Puente, the former general counsel of the FBI, who was a big player in the Spygate scandal. These are different things. And I read the indictment. Again, I said that he was talking about having documents with classified markings. Well, the document with a classified marking doesn't necessarily mean it's a classified document. And there are documents that we have been given or that the public has access to that contain classified markings that are currently declassified. So it's interesting. And this is why they say you can indict a ham sandwich. If you take a picture of a ham sandwich in a bank at the same time that bank was robbed, you can convince a grand jury that the ham sandwich robbed the bank. you can, and that is what they've that is what has been proven. Vivek Ramaswamy, many people could tell you, you don't have to give exculpatory evidence to a grand jury while you're pursuing an indictment. As a matter of fact, if you're really pursuing that indictment, it's in your best interest not to give them the full story, so they feel more compelled to indict whomever the suspect is that you're investigating, looking for that indictment. And that is why you can indict a ham sandwich. That's what they did with Donald Trump in the Stormy case. They didn't include the Michael Cohen letter. They didn't include the Stormy Daniels letter. That's what they did in this case. They didn't include the fact that the Presidential Records Act and all that precedent was in there. So the indictment itself, it's purely political, politically motivated, a two-tiered justice system. Everybody else that's been caught with classified documents, Biden, Bill Clinton. Well, Bill Clinton was a president, so that was challenged in court, and the court ruled that he could do that. Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, who's had thousands apparently of boxes, that were all over the place, never had the ability, the authority to declassify. So it comes down to this very simple matter. There's a Presidential Records Act. If the National Archives wants to pursue those documents, they can do so, but it's a civil case, not a criminal case. And so they had to go with a criminal case. The only way they could potentially put him in jail. I think we would be very upset if other countries did this to their political dissidents. We've actually toppled governments. We have toppled foreign governments that have done the same thing to their political dissidents that the Biden administration is doing to Donald Trump. So my question is, where are those foreign governments that we helped topple their rulers here to help us out now? Because we have a big problem. But I know I see somebody standing next to you, and I just want to say hello to Joan. She's an incredible person, and she's eating a beautiful piece of pizza. Look at that.
Margarita, the best. You have to
Margarita pizza. She's doing great.
Right.
And she knows good pizza like nobody else does. So, Joan, I wanted to say hello. You're incredible. And we're going to make America great again. No, you're incredible. No, you
Just
are.
making people laugh.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Sean, and we appreciate you. This is my mother. Thank you so much, Sean, for coming on the show today. I look forward to having many more discussions with you. Maybe I'll run into some of your friends tomorrow. I definitely believe it's a witch hunt, but we do have some discrepancies I think we have to further talk about and look into when it comes to Trump's position. Like I said, the Venezuelan thing really upsets me. And if I've said this before too as well, hey, listen, all the people who are crying about the border, they want a border, they want to build a wall. I'll give you a wall. Close the bases and you can put laser beams on your walls over there. That's what I think we should do. I think we should take back the empire, bring all the bases back home and build up the wall, make it almost impossible to invade here, and then go from there. Shawn Farash, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Let everybody know where they can find you, Shawn, and we look forward to having you on the show again soon.
Yeah, so you can find any of my Trump stuff at CaptainDeplorable45.com. If you want like a custom voice message and things like that, we do those. I can record your voicemail, ringtone, etc. My show runs on Rumble, rumble.com/LFA-TV, Lima Foxtrot Alpha TV. It's called Ungoverned. It's 10 a.m. Eastern to 11 a.m. Eastern on Rumble. And you can find me on Twitter. First name Shawn, S-H-A-W-N. Last name Farash, F-A-R-A-S-H, with a little underscore in the middle. Shawn_Farash. You can find me there on Twitter. And look forward to meeting you.
Brother, I'll see you soon. Definitely. Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Thank you.
Shawn Farash, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the show and stuff. No, let me say goodbye to the show, Mom. Mom, we're still live right now on the show. I got to go finish. Say hi to everybody out there.
Hello, everyone. My son loves to do the element of surprise, which is what he just did to me now. But it's a great show, and thank you for watching, listening, and trying to understand what's going on in this crazy world.
We're going to go see Carrie Lake. You're going to be happy?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Let's get on the road.
Say goodbye. I'll be in outside in a second. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the show today. Let me see if we got anything over on Rumble. We do not. We do have 15 of you guys hanging on out. If you guys want to help the show and you want to support us, go over to Rockfin, ROKFIN. Sign up, get a membership. It's $14.99 a month, but that really does help us out. That is our free speech platform. You can see the crap we're going and we're dealing with still on YouTube on a regular basis. I went and I questioned them today. I have a tweet out there, ladies and gentlemen. You can see I took a picture. It says it usually takes a month to make a decision on your monetization. Well, it's been 6 months and they haven't made that decision. They want to bleed us out, you know what I'm saying? And they don't have any right to do so. I don't give a crap when anybody tells you it's a private company. Yeah, it's a private company with public easements, meaning that they have cooperation for the government when it comes to building their lines, their satellites, the whole 9 yards. Plus, they entered an agreement with the government and the people, being we the people, to say that they can't pick winners and losers, because when they demonetize you, it's not just about demonetization. It's about lifting you up or putting you up or down in that algorithm. So now you're censored across the board, and it really does hurt you financially. So that is a situation we're fighting for right now. So if you can go to Rockfin, ROKFIN, please do so. All the links are down below. We do have a Patreon if you want to help us out. Fiorella will be back soon, probably not Wednesday. Wednesday for sure. We have James Roguski on the show. We're going to talk about what's going on with the WHO, with the treaty, the pandemic treaty, and the international health regulations. We broke that story very, very early before a lot of people, conservative people on the right, even got a hold of that situation. We here are common sense leftists, our base leftists, whatever you want to call us. We were talking about that before many other people were. We did get a few Rockfin tips. I was just told by Cheese Slice. Oh, we did pasta. You're a commie, so you're the people's pasta. Since the elections are pro wrestling, maybe Dr. West can drop the people's elbow. Oh my God, it's the RFK leg drop. Here we go. It looks like they're fighting across the board. Listen, I reached out to Dr. Cornel West. I reached out to Nick Brana. We're supposed to get an interview. He's supposed to come on the show. It's going to be a hard interview for him because we're not going to ask him the same questions he might get from the leftists. We're going to ask him about COVID protocols. We're going to ask him about trans issues. We're going to ask him about stuff about elections, stuff he probably wouldn't want to talk about on a regular basis. He's going to have to answer questions for. He's going to have to explain to us why he calls Donald Trump a neo-fascist, but Joe Biden a neoliberal. When I think that Joe Biden has more corporate sponsors than Donald Trump ever did, and he's way more fascist, including his squad. When he calls about the gangsters, he's going to have to answer for why the squad is for censorship. People like AOC saying that the platforming works. The other Super Ray, thank you so much, by the way, Gregory Walker, my boy. Very safe U.S. Biolabs. Pasta, I was so pleased to see that it was you asking the hard questions to RFK Jr. Well done. Thank you so much. I know I got a lot of criticism because I was out there going, hey, man, this campaign is important. We're going to have political discussions we normally wouldn't have if RFK didn't join the race. I'm glad I did go get a chance to ask him those questions, because then people can't question me and say, hey, man, you're the one who asked him the hard question. Not the hard questions. The hardest questions when it comes to politics is, what is your stance on Israel? Because if you do speak out against them, and let me tell you something, this is an area where Dr. Cornel West is the best, because he knows how to speak about giving respect and security for the state of Israel, but still respecting the integrity and the lives of the Palestinian people. Nobody does it better than Dr. Cornel West. And I got to give Dr. Cornel West credit, because he was one of the first to show me that it was okay to talk to people who are differently than you and not demonize them. I think he did that better than anybody, but he has some areas of opportunity where he's going to have to speak about, especially when it comes to the COVID, the protocols and the mandates. We're going to see where he's at on those things. So hopefully we'll have him on soon. Fiorella will be back soon. Is that all the stuff for today, Cheese Slice? I think that's it, right? All right, guys. Thank you for everybody who watched on over on Rumble. Thank you for everybody who watched on YouTube. Thank you for everybody who watched on Rockfin, our premium subscribers. That's it for today. For Pasta Jardula, Cheese Slice on those ones and twos. We'll see Fiorella back probably by Friday. Convo out. Thank you very much.